What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, your home for the 2020 World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined by Matt Moreno, Daniel Starkand, here to talk about Game 4 and look ahead to Game 5. Matt and Daniel, we didn't get to be together last night. Matt was at the game. Daniel was covering some Lakers stuff. So I'd love to start, and Daniel, I'll come to you first. The Dodgers win 7-2. Walker Buehler, great performance. The offense comes alive, sort of. What was your reaction to Game 4 and kind of your big takeaway?
Yeah, I'd say my big takeaway was just the offense and specifically kind of the production they got from the bottom of the lineup. Like Gavin Lux reaches all 4 times. Cody Bellinger had his first multi-hit game since like the middle of the summer. So that was nice. But like you said, like even though the Dodgers went out and scored 7 runs, like I think they went like 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position or something like that. Like they had guys on base every inning. So while it was encouraging, it still could have been better. It was good that Will Smith hits that homer at the end to kind of make it a little, more stress-free because 5-2, that's still a little too close for comfort there. But, I've been saying all along this offense, it's either all or nothing. Last night, I wouldn't say we got an all performance, but we got a pretty good offensive performance.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to somebody on Twitter who was responding to my negativity about the Billy McKinney decision. They said, relax, you're winning 5-2. I said, clearly you don't understand what my emotional state is if you think 5-2 is going to make me rest easy in the middle of this game. So, Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Daniel hit a lot of it on the head. The offense, it's funny. Dodger Stadium, for whatever reason now, like fly balls just aren't carrying at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Lamont Wade made a great catch, but Chris Taylor had, again, more deep fly balls that you would have expected to be a home run off the bat. Corey Seager made good contact, and so that probably would have helped the runners in scoring position. Wouldn't have finished 1 for 11, but hey, it is what it is. You get the win. I think it was, a lot of what we probably, the three of us and maybe a lot of fans sort of expected, at least in terms of a win. I personally thought Walker Buehler would pitch well.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him, honestly, to go past 3 innings. I thought maybe that would be it, just because it was his first time starting on short rest. I thought if he pitched well in 3 innings that they would take that and say, thanks, now we're going to hand it over to the bullpen. But all in all, I mean, still alive, right? That's what's most important.
And the bullpen continues to live up to the hype, to the expectation, I think. I mean, Joe Kelly, not perfect. Blake Trinan, not perfect. But, I mean, for those guys to pitch, basically to get 4 2/3 out of your bullpen with 1 earned run allowed, and to walk away, honestly, thinking like, I don't know if this was our best. 2 of the top 3 relievers didn't get used in this game. So I think all things considered, the Buehler performance, as well as the bullpen performance, is another headline. And you guys mentioned it. I mean, they scored 7 runs while going 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. I mean, if that goes up to just 3 or 4 out of 11, like 250 to 300 batting average, then all of a sudden this game's probably 11-2. Just about everyone offensively got going. Chris Taylor was 0 for 3, but I pointed out last night he hit 2 balls over 100 miles an hour last night, and both of them were outs. Turner is the guy. Justin Turner, I think, is the guy that there's some serious concern about. He put three balls in play, 91 miles an hour off the bat, 80 miles an hour off the bat, 72 miles an hour off the bat. He had an awful-looking strikeout in the first inning with a runner in scoring position, did draw a walk. So he's a guy that's interesting as far as I'm concerned. And so that's a perfect segue into looking ahead to next game, Game 5, Logan Webb, Julio Urias in San Francisco on Thursday. I mentioned to you guys 2 storylines ahead of time. I'm going to throw a third one in here and surprise you a little bit, because thinking about Turner, this was another thing we talked about. Where would you have Justin Turner, Matt? I'll start with you. Where does Justin Turner belong in the Dodger lineup? We expect that with another righty on the mound, it's going to be a similar group of players, and we can talk a little bit about whether Matt Beatty gets in for Chris Taylor. But just in a 1 through 8 stretch, with the way that Justin Turner has hit, they move Will Smith up, Cody Bellinger looked good, Lux looks good. Where would you have Justin Turner slotted 1 through 8?
I think probably somewhere around the 5th or 6th. I think you leave Will Smith in the cleanup spot right now. Excuse me. And, I don't want to completely sidetrack, but for me, like, Justin Turner is like going to be an X factor for Game 5, because it's been a very uncharacteristic postseason for him so far. I think what he still can kind of bring, he's not necessarily hitting right now, but he will work long at bats at least. He will make the pitcher sort of earn the out. Or end up drawing a walk like we saw last night. But, that was more I forgot whatever relief pitcher came in, but he also, he couldn't find the zone very well. So I think I'd have him fifth or sixth, Dave Roberts did say Gavin Lux is going to start, so I'd have Lux mixed in somewhere in there somewhere as well. I still leave Cody Bellinger down near the bottom of the lineup. And so for me, like Turner, Justin Turner, Gavin Lux, Chris Taylor in some order between, 5, 6, 7 type thing.
Daniel, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I'd probably leave him fifth. I know Lux had a good night the other night and has been hot recently, but I still think the overall trust in Justin Turner is still higher
Yeah.
than him and the guys at the bottom of the lineup. To me, he hasn't been great this postseason, but that just means, he's gonna he should get going at some point, and he's been historically, one of the best October performers in franchise history. So, in a Game 5 winner take all, his name's probably going to be in the mix there somewhere as far as X factors, like Matt said. So I'd leave him fifth. And I'm with Matt. I'd have Lux right behind him sixth. And I tweeted during the game that Cody Bellinger should never bat higher than eighth. He immediately responded with a couple hits, so he kind of made me eat my words there. But I'm still sticking to that. I'd have him eighth and Chris Taylor seventh. But I just think, the overall production from the bottom of the lineup that we've been getting is definitely encouraging, but not encouraging enough to move Justin Turner, further down.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that the Mookie Seager, Trey Turner 1 through 3 is exactly what you like. I think we probably also agree that Will Smith in the 4 spot is a good addition. To go from 8th one day to 4th the next is a pretty hilarious move. But yeah, I mean, I think I said last night, I think I would actually move Lux ahead of Justin Turner, in part just because it gives you the lefty-righty mix-up a little bit. You don't have back-to-back lefties. And I mean, look, I know we want to do the, the loyalty and what you've done for us in the past, and I agree with you that I'm not as pessimistic about Turner as I have been about guys like Bellinger and stuff like that, but man, the at-bats that he took yesterday were really not good looking. I joked the number of times that he turns around and gives the umpire a stink eye for a pitch that's right down the middle that he thinks is like, I don't know, inside or high or whatever. So I just don't think he's seeing the ball well. I would just move him down a spot. Lux 5th, Turner 6th, Bellinger 7th. And then the 8th spot leads to the next conversation. We had some people in the live stream last night asking about how would you construct the lineup? Now, obviously, there's a big shift when you go from Dodger Stadium to Oracle Park in San Francisco as far as the outfield goes. It's one of the biggest outfields in the league. It's one of the weirdest outfields in the league. And so the question is, Gavin Lux, Dave Roberts said he will be in the lineup on Thursday. The question is, where does he play? They liked him in center field because they like his ability to track the ball off the bat. It's easier to track balls in center than it is in left. The flip side to that is it's a much bigger, much more dangerous center field in San Francisco. And so one idea that was brought up, and Daniel, I'll come to you first, was do you put Cody Bellinger, who is your best defensive center fielder, do you put him in center field, knowing how complex of a task that is? Do you put Gavin Lux in left field? And that would actually bring Matt Beatty into the lineup rather than Chris Taylor. Beatty did start game 1 against Logan Webb. He was terrible. Everybody was terrible in that game. Or do you leave Chris Taylor in left field, Gavin Lux in center field? Do you switch them for this game? How would you handle sort of the construction of your defensive alignment, Daniel?
To me, I think you got to put your best offensive lineup out there. You mentioned how much they struggled against Logan Webb. Like, I'm expecting runs to be at a premium, so you got to give yourself the best chance to score runs. So with that being said, I'd stick with the same 8 guys that were in there last night. I think that's the best offensive alignment. Defensively, I get the concerns with Lux in center. But he said it himself that he feels more comfortable out there, compared to left. So I'd probably just leave him there. I know that San Francisco has a big outfield, but he's an athletic guy. Like, he doesn't lack speed, so I'm not concerned about the size. And if we're being realistic, like, there might be one or two plays in that like right center field gap that maybe will affect the game, but overall, I don't think it would have a huge effect. So I'd stick with the same defensive lineman they had last night. To me, like you said, Beatty did not really inspire much confidence with the at-bats he took off Logan Webb. And to me, just in a winner-take-all game, I don't think he should be in the lineup.
I love the announcers last night. They're like, this Gavin Lux guy, he just learned to play the outfield this year. It's like, let's rephrase that. He learned to play center field like 3 weeks ago. So yeah. I think we need to give him a little bit more credit than as not just this year. Matt, do you agree? Same 8 guys, same 8 spots?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I understand kind of the concern that Dave Roberts expressed about Oracle center field at Oracle Park kind of heading into the series. I will bring up also, Gavin Lux, Chase Field is similar in that respect, and so is Coors Field. And Gavin Lux played center field at both of those stadiums this year. He made at least one, maybe two impressive catches on the
Yeah.
run in Chase Field. And one thing, like Daniel said, that they've consistently brought up as to why they could move Lux around is because he's so athletic. So with that speed, with that athleticism, with the reads that Lux has said he's able to get in center field, you leave him there.
Yeah.
And you leave Chris Taylor in left field. He's just putting together better at bats. Especially AJ. Like you said, everybody struggled against Logan Webb. I think AJ Pollock was on the pretty extreme end of that.
Yeah.
So I think you need to leave Chris Taylor in left field. You leave Cody Bellinger at first base, and like we've seen so many times, as it gets later into the game, if the Dodgers have a lead, it wouldn't shock me if then Bellinger makes his way out to center field and they put somebody else at first base.
Well, that reminded me of a text message Daniel sent me last night saying how excited he likes this alignment because it means more Billy McKinney at bats, more Billy McKinney time in the field. And so, right, you sent me that text message, I think, Daniel, right? Did I misread that? Was that from somebody else?
I think I spelled Albert Pujols' name
Oh,
wrong in
okay,
that one.
okay. You were not advocating for more Billy McKinney. It was so funny. I was messaging with somebody about 'cause I was just like, really, we're doing the Billy McKinney thing, and then someone's like the double switch, which they could have waited on the double switch, but whatever. They bring McKinney in, and then it's like maybe they like his defense, and then 2 plays later, Seager makes a great play in the hole. The throw is terrible. It bounces 4 times, and McKinney tries to backhand this ball, and it just pops up in the air, and you're like, oh, good Lord, this is what we're gonna do for a guy that touches the ball on every ground ball. So I agree with you. I think Chris Taylor. I like what I'm seeing. Again, 0 for 3, yes, but he hit 2 balls to the warning track, both over 100 miles an hour. Easily, one of those could have been a home run, and we're not even having this conversation. So I agree with you. I'll be curious to see if they do the left field, center field thing. It's not a question of athleticism at all. It's just, whether or not you trust. Because Chris Taylor's been great, but I've also been the guy advocating the whole time, you can make a decision about who's playing center field, but the ball still has to be hit there, and there still has to be a ball that's hit there that's difficult, So, and if none of that happens, then it doesn't really matter. Last talking point, and then we'll get to predictions here. Conversation about, does Max Scherzer appear in Game 5 of this series? Of course, Scherzer, this would kind of be a normal bullpen rest or a bullpen day for him, having pitched on Monday night, this game on Thursday, so 2 days rest. Obviously, you wouldn't be expecting a lot. I'll share a little bit on this one at the first end and see if you guys agree or disagree. For me, I don't want to see Max Scherzer in Game 5 unless we're in extra innings. And my reasoning for that is very simple. I think you're expecting to get 5 innings out of Julio Urias. I think there's going to be a shorter leash than normal, but I also think he's earned the ability to not have the Gonsolin treatment where it's if you're struggling, or the Desclafani treatment where if you're struggling in the second, you immediately get pulled. I think they're hoping to get 4 or 5 from him. And if that's the case with a fully rested bullpen, I trust Jansen more than I trust Scherzer. I trust Trinan more than I trust Scherzer. I trust Knebel more than I trust Scherzer. And I trust Joe Kelly even more than I trust Scherzer, in the context of coming out of the bullpen, in a context of something that Scherzer has never done and these guys have consistently been doing. And so I would trust all 4 of those guys. And if you tell me that I only need to get 12 to 15 outs, I would much rather those 4 guys. Vesia, if you want to get a lefty in there, even Gratterall, the way he looked. I mean, I think Gratterall and Scherzer are in the same tier for me. So from my perspective, that's what I would treat it. Because secondly, look, we're not looking ahead and making a decision that's going to hurt the team in order to plan for a potential NLCS. But I'm just saying, what's the upside of jeopardizing the NLCS rotation if you were to get there? To me, there's none, because I trust those other guys more. Matt, your thoughts on Scherzer? Dave Roberts said he's not going to be used, but then he also joked, but I've been known to change my mind before. Every Dodger fan had horrific flashbacks. What was your perspective on what you think he'll do versus what you would do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Dave will go to Scherzer, like you said, unless it's in the 14th inning and the Dodgers have basically exhausted every viable option. I think Max Scherzer would get into the game before David Price at that
probably
point.
Gonsolin too.
Probably. I think Scherzer, because he is who he is, he will tell Dave Roberts, I am available for whatever you need. And then Dave Roberts will, okay, thank you. We'll see, we'll let you know. And then hopefully not have to go to him. I agree with you. The bullpen has been a strong point for the Dodgers all year. And as much as, there isn't a Game 1 of the NLCS unless you win Game 5 of the NLDS, obviously. But you do need to sort of plan it ahead as much as you possibly can. They did it last night with Julio, 2 nights ago with Julio Urias. Dave Roberts said he wasn't going to be available because they were saving him, or last night, getting my days mixed up. He wasn't going to be available out of the bullpen for Game 4 because obviously they're saving him for Game 5. So I think we'll see something similar with Scherzer. If Clayton Kershaw was around, maybe you could use Scherzer because then you have Kershaw in theory, depending on how everything would have taken shape to start game one of an NLCS. But since that's not the case, I just don't think you can risk that, because you keep chasing that way, you're going to end up it's going to catch up to you in games 2, 3, or 4 of the NLCS, and then what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and game one of the NLCS, if the Dodgers were to make it, would be Saturday, October 16th.
Yeah.
So anybody who gets used yesterday or today is basically off limit. So if Scherzer were to get used, he would not be available. One other note, Daniel, then I'll come to you. Remember that in the times they've used Kershaw out of the bullpen, those have historically been worse bullpens. Those have been bullpens where there weren't 4 to 5 guys that you had incredible levels of trust in. And even then, I think you could argue whether it was a good decision. But in the case where you have 4, I don't know if elite is too strong of a word for some of those guys, but borderline elite relievers, the way they've been pitching, I think it's different. Daniel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like you guys kind of said it all. Like, I don't have a whole lot to add. Kind of what Matt just said. Like, even though this is a must-win game and your season's on the line, like, this isn't the World Series. Maybe if this was Game 7 of the World Series, I'd feel differently. But I definitely would not feel comfortable going into Game 1 of the NLCS starting Tony Gonsolin because you wasted Max Scherzer for like 3 outs when you have, like you said, this is the best bullpen they've had in a very long time. There's 6 or 7 guys that you trust there. Like we were talking before the postseason about how we didn't think Brusdar Gratterall would be on the roster. And here he is in pitching in every single game so far and throwing 103, and no one has touched him. So I just feel like they have so many relievers that they could get through this game without Scherzer. I'm with you guys. Obviously, if it goes, 13, 14 innings or whatever, then you got to start to reconsider once your bullpen starts getting empty. So I don't have a problem with Max, being in the bullpen for the game. And I'm sure there will be a point where he's in there like stretching just to stay loose, and the broadcast will show it and everyone will start going crazy. But I just don't really see a scenario outside of a really long game that Scherzer gets into this, just because you want to have him for game 1. Like, the Braves have Max Fried ready to go. The goal is to win a World Series here, not just beat the Giants. And yes, you have to beat the Giants, but I think they have enough guys to do it without Scherzer.
Daniel, real quick, Scherzer or Gratterall, who do you trust more out of the bullpen right now?
I'm going with Gratterall right now. The guy's throwing 103.
Yeah.
In a cold October night, that's not easy to hit, even if he's throwing it down the middle every time. So I'd go with him just because it's a familiar role.
Yeah.
Like, even though Max Scherzer is arguably the best pitcher on the planet overall, like, he's not a reliever.
Yeah.
Like, he's used to having a set routine to get ready for games. And when you're in the bullpen, you don't get that luxury.
What about Bickford?
I'm still going Bickford.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it depends on the situation. I definitely think if it's like a situation like 2 runners on and 2 outs, it's Bickford, no question, just because he's done that plenty of times. Like, if Max Scherzer does pitch in this game, I think ideally it would be like you give him at least a clean inning. Like, I wouldn't bring him into a situation with guys on base.
Fair. All right. Well, let's get to some.
I think also,
go ahead, Matt.
Jeff, real quick before we move on, it's Kenley and Corey Knebel didn't pitch in game 4, and we've seen them push Kenley for 4 or 5 outs before. So I think that's another factor, and that could be key too.
Totally. And Treinen got 4 outs last night. Again, not necessarily the most confidence-inducing 4 outs. We know Joe Kelly can go long. Knebel hasn't pitched in a few days. He's a guy that you tend to be a little more cautious with, but we are in the postseason, and so it's like, hey, all hands on deck. So a lot of these guys, I think you trust a little bit more. Absolutely. Okay, let's get to predictions for this one. We'll do the same sort of predictions we had last time, which are, give me a score prediction, and then give me maybe an offensive MVP or a player of the game that you want to do. And I want to make a note. Daniel and I made some predictions ahead of Game 4 in our pregame show, and we deserve awards, I believe, for all of our predictions. We were both half right on the score. I predicted 5-2 Dodgers. He predicted 7-4 Dodgers. So Will Smith ruined my prediction, which was fine because he also nailed that both of us predicted 2 home runs for the Dodgers in that one. I also want to note I had Gavin Lux as offensive MVP. He had a great night. And I had Walker Buehler. I predicted innings pitched, strikeouts, and earned runs, and I was nailed all 3 except for I said 4 innings instead of 4 1/3. So some credit there. So all this to say is you should take our predictions very, very seriously. I can't speak for Matt. Matt has very little track record of successful predictions. I want to make that clear up front. Okay, I'm not promising anything on his end, but on our end, we're going with that. And so, Daniel, I'll start with you. Matt, you can go second, and I'll close this out. Give me a player of the game and a score prediction.
Yeah, and I'll also add that I predicted Dodgers in 5.
That's true.
Before
That's
the
true.
series even started. So I obviously, got to stick with that. I think the Dodgers are going to win this game. I think it's going to be low scoring. Obviously, we got 2 great pitchers on the mound. I just hope they could get some off Logan Webb. But I'm predicting 4-2 Dodgers. Nice, close, tight game down to the end. We'll be extra nervous till they get that final out, as is always the case. So I'll go 4-2. My offensive MVP, I'll go Mookie Betts.
Wow, not
like
Corey Seager. Is this allowed? Wait, hold on, Matt. Is this allowed? Is he allowed to say anybody other than Corey Seager?
I can't keep saying the same guy.
Okay, so you got Mookie for offensive MVP.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. Matt, go for it.
All right. I'll bring a little balance to the show today. And a lot of this, going into the series, I thought Dodgers would win in 4. Then in discussing game 3, I thought they would win that. However, if they lost it, I didn't necessarily see them winning the series. I thought it would then go 5 games. I didn't necessarily see them winning it, though. I will stick to that for the sake of some balance.
Just what a humble guy. He's just going to predict the Dodgers loss for the sake of the show. I respect that, Matt.
I'll fall on the sword for the show.
Yeah, no one can accuse us of being biased anymore, huh?
Right. I think it'll be 3-1-ish type thing. I don't know. Brandon Crawford comes up with a big hit.
I was going to say, we're predicting an offensive MVP from the Giants, too. I love it. Look at this. Consistency. Okay.
At least he didn't predict the Dodgers get shut out
true.
again. He gave them 1 run.
That's nice. That's nice. I'm going to stick with the same thing I've been saying. I think 5 runs is the number. I think if the Dodgers can get 5 runs, then I like their chances. 2 things working in their favor. 1, I just refuse to believe that this lineup is going to get shut down by the same guy 6 days apart. I refuse to believe that that's possible. I think the offense that we saw last night was encouraging. Obviously, 7 runs, 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. If that number normalizes even a little bit, it's way more than 7. Second thing is, nobody is talking about how bad the Giants' offense has been for the last 2 or 3 days. They get 1 run in game 3, if not for the Longoria home run. I mean, I think after the home run till the beginning of last night's game, the Dodgers had retired 19 straight Giants. They had nothing offensively last night. Their 2 RBIs were both on ground outs. One of which was like the Dodgers just conceding the run to take the out. So I think the Giants' offense has been really bad. Julio's on normal rest. Julio has been very good of late. The Dodgers' bullpen has been rested. And that's the other piece. The Dodgers' bullpen has been rested. They haven't gotten a ton of looks at Knebel and Jansen, whereas the Dodgers have seen absolutely everybody out of the San Francisco Giants bullpen multiple times. So Doval scares me. He will forever scare me. There's nobody else in the bullpen that worries me. Rogers maybe a little bit, but even him, I mean, they've seen him like 3 times, I think, already in this series. So I think the Dodgers can get to Webb a little bit. I think they score 5 runs. I think the Dodgers win 5-3. As far as a player of the game, let's see. I'm going to go, I'll just go with my guy, Mr. Reliable, Will Smith. Big hits and big moments. He's got 2 home runs in the series. So I'm going 5-3 Dodgers. Will Smith right in the middle of the lineup. Big hit, big game from him. So Daniel's got the Dodgers winning. Matt's got the Dodgers losing. For the sake of the show, I've got the Dodgers winning. We'll see what happens. We are going to do a pregame show on Thursday. Daniel and I will be live 30 minutes before the game, so 5:30 to 6. Be here, Dodger Blue 1958 on YouTube. And we will have a postgame show as well. I don't think it's going to be me by myself. We're still working on that piece, but we will have a live postgame show breaking it down, win or lose, hopefully win. So that's Matt Moreno. That's Daniel Starkand. Check out DodgerBlue.com for all the latest pregame stuff. Dodger Blue 1958 on social media. We'll have all the updates, lineup-wise, that kind of stuff, as well as pregame and postgame coverage. So thanks for joining us. Go Dodgers. We'll see you before and after Game 5.
The best team holding a trophy high in the air. The Los Angeles Dodgers, champions of the baseball world.